Whoever thought it was a good idea to create a Spider-Man film franchise without Spider-Man is probably fired right now. Why do I say that? Well, there are plenty of reports circulating in Forbes and in other news outlets that Sony Spider-Man Universe has officially ended after Kraven the Hunter.
Cause I've been living life right like I could just die any minute. Going for a ride down the side.
Hi everyone, my name is Jacob Berry. Welcome to the StudioJake vidcast where I talk about all things pop culture. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and if you're watching on YouTube, ring that little bell to get notifications when I post a new vidcast and consider becoming a channel member. As I've said multiple times, Spider-Man is my second favorite comic book hero right after Batman. And as you can see, because I have two Spider-Man posters behind me, I've got the desk mat and I've got the shirt. Well, I got excited when I heard that Sony was going to do their own Spider-Man universe apart from the MCU. I did think it was kind of a contradictory idea, but I sort of look back in the days before the MCU with a little bit of nostalgia for when all these franchises were sort of their own little insular universes. I love the MCU Spider-Man. I think Tom Holland is fantastic. But something odd happened with the Sony universe. I love the Venom movies. I haven't seen the third one as of the recording of this video, but I did enjoy the first two. Yes, I said the first two, but all the other movies weren't really that good. Let's just be honest. The Madam Web was a big joke. Morbius was a movie you laughed at, not with. I haven't seen Kraven yet, but by all reports, it's just as terrible. So, where did they go wrong? If you want my honest opinion, they went wrong by not introducing Spider Man. They should have done that. And they didn't have to make it a continuation of the Tobey Maguire series or even the Amazing Spider Man. They could have made Peter Parker a unique placeholder within what was originally called the Venomverse. But they didn't do that. They decided to ignore the fan pleas for introducing Peter Parker into the Sony Spider-Man universe. And as a result, it is crashing and burning. The new Sony CEO seems not interested in comic book movies at all and is happy to license out Spider-Man fully to Disney for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Hey, it's free money for him. Why wouldn't he do that? And I think that that is probably the right direction for Sony. So this is according to superherohype.com. Sony Spider-Man Universe is reportedly being put on hold for the time being following the release of Kraven the Hunter. Sony's Spider-Man Universe, a shared world inhabited by characters who are commonly associated with Spider-Man in Marvel Comics, began in 2018 with Ruben Fleischer's Venom. That was followed by 2021's Venom Let There Be Carnage, 2022's Morbius, 2024's Madam Web, and most recently, 2024's Venom The Last Dance. The future of Sony's Spider-Man universe beyond that remains unclear at this time. While a number of different projects were announced to be in development, there are no firm release dates or publicly announced plans to move forward with any specific film. According to the Wrap, this is because Sony doesn't have plans to move forward with any Spider-Man universe films at this time. The article reads, for Sony, the future appears to lie in projects more directly connected to Spider-Man himself. They develop what they want to develop for now, a top talent agent told The Wrap. It's really about the next Spider-Man film, according to a Sony insider. The studio is now focusing its efforts on Tom Holland's highly anticipated fourth Spider-Man film, the next installment in the acclaimed Spider-Verse animated film series with Beyond the Spider-Verse and a Spider-Noir television series featuring Nicolas Cage, projects that lean into rather than away from the web-slinger's central appeal. Kraven the Hunter is directed by J.C. Chander and stars Aaron Taylor Johnson in the titular role. The cast of the R-rated film includes Ariana DeBose, Fred Heikinger, Alessandro Nivola, Christopher Abbott, and Russell Crowe. The MCU Spider-Man 4 movie with Tom Holland, meanwhile, is scheduled to hit theaters on July 24th, 2026, with release dates for Spider-Man Noir and Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse have not been announced. And again, to reiterate, I feel like where Sony went wrong with this is not introducing Spider-Man as soon as Venom was a success. It was a surprise success, as was Venom Let There Be Carnage and Venom The Last Dance. Both those films did better in their second week. Mainstream critics didn't care for those movies because they were more fun than they were, say, very visceral, like The Dark Knight or Spider-Man 2 or even some of the MCU films, but they still managed to get a success because audiences saw them for what they are, not what the critics wanted them to be. And as a Spider-Man fan, I enjoyed all the Venom movies. Like I said, didn't care for Morbius or Madam Web. I haven't seen Kraven or Venom 3 yet, but I do plan to in due time. All Sony had to do was one of two things to make this universe work, but they chose not to do either. The first was to make it apart from the MCU. They could have introduced Miles Morales like they have in their animated films. Those are highly lucrative and successful films. They could have just introduced a live action Miles Morales who has taken over the webs of Spider-Man in this universe. Maybe Peter Parker has passed away like he did in the first Spider-Verse movie, and they could have had him be unique. Now, I am not a fan wholesale of Miles Morales. I like him in certain contexts, like I liked him in Ultimate Spider-Man, the animated series where Drake Bell portrayed Peter Parker. In that series, he had his own identity as a superhero. He was called Kid Arachnid, and that worked well within that realm in that space. He was also from another dimension, although he did permanently move to Peter Parker's universe, I believe in season 3, and he was a main character in season 4, which involved a whole lot of other Spider-Man. So they had Scarlet Spider, Iron Spider, and Agent Venom, and then, of course, Kid Arachnid. I could have seen them do something like that. But like I said, Peter Parker is Spider-Man, Miles Morales is Miles Morales. But I think that Miles has enough fans where he could have maintained at least activity within this realm, but they didn't do that. The second thing they could have done is introduce their own Peter Parker. They could have gotten someone, maybe pinched a actor from one of the CW DC shows and used him to play Spider-Man if they wanted to do it in a younger context and have him build up and take it on, because it's clear that to me the Sony Spider-Man universe was building up to some sort of Sinister Six film. So Venom was being introduced. They also introduced Carnage, right? So that's two right off the bat. They introduced Morbius and they brought Vulture from the MCU over to the SSU. They also brought in some hints of villains in Madam Web. So they could have made that all work out. And of course, they introduced Kraven the Hunter, who was a founding member of the Sinister Six in the comic books. But again, they didn't give you enough. They kept teasing Spider-Man a little bit in trailers and in verbiage, and also in the Venomverse. Now, there are some spoilers for Venom Let There Be Carnage here, so you can fast forward just a few seconds. But just to say, at the end, it appears that the symbiote recognizes Tom Holland's Spider-Man when he's pulled into the MCU. Now, we don't know the connection there, but that would have worked. Personally, I would have liked to have seen Spider-Man, the Tom Holland version, take on Tom Hardy's Venom. I think that would have been cool. There are rumors the MCU wants to do that, and I hope they do that, because that would be fantastic. Because Sony didn't decide to make it unique from the MCU by introducing Miles Morales or bringing in a new actor to play Spider-Man, Peter Parker Spider-Man, in their universe, it kind of just fell flat. No one is interested in these characters. Joker proved that this was lightning in a bottle, and it's not like that can't happen more than once. Obviously, Venom and Venom Let There Be Carnage and Venom The Last Dance was a success, but Venom has enough context outside of Spider-Man to have been able to do that. Joker was just a unique vision that a particular director had. Now, the Penguin is kind of what is happening while Batman's busy with other things, right? But that's not sustainable for an entire film franchise. As soon as Venom was a success, they should have immediately introduced Spidey, Peter Parker in my preference, and had him take on these villains. It would have made way more sense that way. And like I said, they didn't have to do it as a continuation of the Andrew Garfield or Tobey Maguire films. They could have introduced a new one. Personally, I would have liked to have seen them bring in maybe an older actor to portray a more mature Spider-Man, someone who maybe is married and is successful. I think we're all kind of tired of the high school Peter Parker and the sad sack Peter Parker, or the emasculated Peter Parker. We want to see Peter Parker have some success in his life. We want him to be happy. We want him to thrive. And I think that is something that Marvel is learning with the insane sales drops of their Spider-Man titles and the success of their new Ultimate Universe, where Peter Parker is shown to be a stable family man who is an older, more mature version of Spider-Man. I think that that would have made way more sense and it would have made for a more compelling story, but alas, they didn't do that. And so as a result, Amy Pascal, who has really been pushing these films, she was actually supposed to be fired from Sony, but she found a loophole in her contract that allowed her to stay on as long as they were making Spider-Man films. And now, of course, she's attached to Greta Gerwig's Narnia franchise, which is probably going to mean it's going to be a disaster. I talked about that in the previous video. But anyway, she's done at Sony. Sony seems to be done with comic book movies and they want to move away from them. And they're happy to take free money from Disney to make these MCU type films. So we're just going to have to wait to see. But I know Disney is probably excited that they don't have to beg and plead for Spider-Man villains to be introduced into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked that video, give it a like, share it out to all your friends, leave me a comment, tell what you think, and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, ring that little bell so you get notifications when I post a new vidcast, and consider becoming a channel member. Head on over to my website, StudioJakeMedia.com. It's free with no ads. You just sign up either on the WordPress app or with your email. You get at least one article a day, sometimes more than that if I'm not busy, but it covers all kinds of things within the pop culture space. If you want to support what I'm doing, head on over to my locals community. The link is in the description of the video. You can sign up for a monthly subscription or send my articles tips, including exclusive ones that I have right there. Also, did you know that I write novels? I've got 4 of them right here. Cacophony, a supernatural thriller, the Seven Royals series, which is a high fantasy series starring your favorite fairy tale characters, and then my latest novella, Blessed Child. It is a life-affirming story about an elf princess who is pregnant with a human baby, and this causes turmoil in her kingdom, so her father hires a disgraced knight to protect her, and he is on the path to redemption, and they formed a bond over their mutual stories. So definitely check that out. Get one or all of them on Amazon and leave me a 5-star review. It really helps out small indie creators like myself. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake.
Cause I've been living life right like I